Welcome back, live from COP25, the United Nations Climate Conference in Madrid, and live from the Italian pavilion. My name is Giulia Braga, Program Manager of Connect for Climate, World Bank Group, and I am very, very pleased to introduce our last live interview today with a very distinguished speaker that kindly joined me, Mr. Andrea Illy, Chairman of Illy Café. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping us all awake, generously offering coffee, delicious coffee here at the Italian Pavilion throughout the COP conference. You know, negotiations are very hard and, you know, time intense, so we really appreciated it.
So I hope that besides awake, inspired.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Illy, can you tell us please a little bit more about Illy's sustainability strategy?
Well, Illy has been pioneering in direct sourcing nearly 30 years ago, 20 years ago, in order to access directly to the best coffee grown, directly from the hand of the grower. So this direct contact allow us to have full traceability of every single bean that we buy, but most importantly, to transfer knowledge, know-how to the growers, how to elevate the agronomical practices for a more sustainable quality.
So building capacity
yes.
at
Building
the local
capacity
level
and,
as well.
And of course, once the grower reaches the standards that we are seeking, we buy directly from them immediately after the crop, and we pay a premium price, which is on average 30%. So this became a kind of a unique proprietary supply chain, which allow us now to buy 100% of our bean directly from growers. This is now up and running. The University of Coffee that we founded with the purpose to transfer knowledge to the growers celebrates 20 years this year.
Congratulations.
Yes, and the award that we give to the best growers is now at the United Nations. So each year we award the three finalists of each of the 9 countries of our blend at the United Nations. And then an independent jury chooses the best of the best among the 9 first of the 9 countries. And last year was Rwanda. This year was Colombia, the former FARC warriors, converted to coffee growing by our effort. So this is as far as sustainable quality is concerned, which also includes adapting to climate change. Because yes, coffee is impacted by climate change, and we have to take it into account. As far as adapting to climate change, there are 3 possible problems: too high temperatures, too excessive drought, and too much rain. And this can be either one from year to year because it's very volatile.
So the increase also of extreme weather events, I think it could be another.
So in order to adapt, we have first to improve agronomical practices, which is something we already do with our growers, try to find ways to really adapt better to the climate change. Second is developing new cultivars, in particularly the Arabica beans, more adapted to the effect of climate change.
More resilient.
Yes, more resilient. For that, we did sequence the Arabica genome, and then we gave, together with our Italian colleagues, Lavazza, and we gave this Arabica genome, which is the most important plant cultivated, to the World Coffee Research, which is a world research about conservation and also developing new cultivar adapted, more resilient to climate change. And the third possible action is migrating plantations to higher altitudes and higher latitudes. For that, we have to talk about the next opportunity, which is beyond adaptation, also mitigation to climate change.
Absolutely.
And this is the frontier, because I myself, I'm a chemist, I'm a scientist, so I took 1 year, kind of a sabbatical. I spent 1,000 hours studying a model of what I call virtuous agriculture.
Exactly.
It's virtuous because not about the two virtue, which is the double benefit for the environment and for human health, but they also the virtuous cycle between the two, let's say, benefits. The secret is enriching the soil with organic matter, which allows to sequestrate carbon from the air, but enriching the soil with organic matter triggers extreme positive, let's say, effects. Better water, let's say, conservation, and boosting biodiversity. And when you have biodiversity, you have natural defenses for the plant. And so you reduce the dependence from agrochemicals. So at the end of the day, soil health, plant health, fruit health, or coffee health, seed health, and eventually better health also for humans who consume it. So this puts together agronomy together with nutrition, which are two extreme complex fields, and the bet is using artificial intelligence in order to let's say, extract knowledge from data and be able more and more to lead the agronomical practices in a way they maximize the double benefit. So this is what we are doing now, is much beyond the coffee only, is for all agriculture, is much beyond Illy itself. So the goal of Illy is to decarbonize Illy Cafe by 2033, carbon-free 2033. Because this is our centennial anniversary.
Oh, I was wondering why. Thank you for explaining
we
that.
want to celebrate with this magnificent goal.
It's a wonderful
with a
way
circular model, because it's a soil-to-soil carbon, let's say, cycle. Then we are, as a group, as a family, let's say, enterprise, we are diversifying into new crops, like cocoa, like tea, like wine, like fruits. And we want to have a kind of a red ribbon, investing in other crops with the same agro-food strategy. And last but not least, the greater good, which is more a dream than a goal, to share with the World Bank, with other institutions, the FAO, the United Nations, and the private sector, the adventure to try to make agriculture carbon-free. And through that also prevent many deaths, because non-communicable diseases are the #1 cause of death, with 41 million deaths per year, 18 million only cardiovascular, and 9 million cancer. And the joint commission between the FAO and the World Health Organization stated that 1/5, so 20% of this death can be prevented with a better diet. So hopefully, besides making agriculture carbon-free, we can also prevent some diseases in the world.
And what Illy Cafe is doing is really, really important because it links together knowledge as well and research with a private sector approach and
a lot of collaboration with the public one. Because, for instance, in the first, let's say, tier, which is sustainable quality, we do cooperate a lot with Italian cooperation, with agency from the UN like UNIDO a lot. We have a project in Ethiopia, transferring knowledge, building a university of coffee in Ethiopia in order to make the Ethiopian supply chain more sustainable and also have a better economical condition. So we try to have let's say, a lot of cooperation with pre-competitive activities.
Mr. Illy, thank you so much and congratulations for the fantastic and much needed work you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit more what you think the role of investments and the financial sector could be in advance best practices that and
absolutely
the work you're carrying on?
Whichever we need to do, adaptation or mitigation, working on agronomical practices or new cultivars, or even let's say moving plantation to new areas, we need to invest. And the coffee sector is heavily underinvested. The best educated guess is that there are only $350 million invested in coffee sustainability every year, which is really not enough. We would need at least $1 billion per year. The question is how to let growers access to subsidized finance, because the cost of money in producing countries is twice as high as the one in the OECD countries where most of the coffee is consumed. So we have to find a way for the, let's say, the rich part of the coffee chain, which is the consumer countries, to help the poorest, let's say, region to access to this finance. We developed a model which is simply based on assuring the credit default risk, which is pretty low, is around 4%. But still, if we can provide credit default risk assurance to growers, they will be able, we would be able to mobilize a lot more institutional finance, including the one of the World Bank, including the one of philanthropy, including the one of so-called impact investment nowadays, which is already a gigantic sector with over 100 billion. So I'm positive about that. And the cost of insuring the credit default risk is not so high, because many times it's enough to have a long-term supply contract or an insurance. It's highly feasible. Also, if you consider that in coffee there are already significant premiums, up to 20 cents per pound paid for other causes which are less directly linked to sustainability. So I think we can do a good job with the help of the World Bank as a kind of a leading actor in making this scheme working.
Thank you, Mr. Illy. What are your hopes for the closing of COP25 here in Madrid, and what is your message to citizens and to young people?
My hope is that we quickly reach the tipping point. The very importance of such an event is to raise awareness and mobilize people as consumers, as entrepreneurs, as citizens, for more sustainable, let's say, assets and more sustainable consumption behavior. So if the day we reach the tipping point, it will be an avalanche effect, making the world sustainable shortly. I expect that we will not
social inclusion, the
everything.
Of social
I expect we will not be able to reach the first target, the COP21, of being reaching the highest historical record in emission in 2020. We will probably exceed. I probably expect we will not be able to halt them by 2030, but in this time, let's say, frame, in the next decades, we will reach the tipping point, and then we will have this avalanche effect that will probably put us in the condition to reach the 2050 goal to be carbon free. The second wish is that we finally address one of the key priority, which is also carbon sequestration. Everybody is now focused on carbon efficiency, lowering emission or zeroing emissions. But we also have to remember that we need to sequestrate carbon. And this is why the virtuous agriculture model that I studied is good, because enriching the soil and the ocean with carbon is at the moment the cheapest and
most effective.
It's a queen that we can pursue immediately.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Illy.
My pleasure.
Chairman of Illy Cafe, for joining us here today. And it was really a pleasure to hear from you about the fantastic and innovative work you are carrying on, and celebrate Italian leadership here at the Italian Pavilion at COP25. This was our last interview today. Thank you so much for being here. We will be back tomorrow. Continue to follow us with hashtag WeAreAction COP25 and C4C Live. Thank you.